What's going on, everybody? We are back. We got episode number 90 of the Club and Sub podcast, steadily approaching the century mark. Tonight we're going to be talking about UFC 274. We got Carla Esparza taking on Rose Namajunas and Justin Gaethje taking on Charles DuBronx Oliveira. Really good card. Once you get out of the first few fights, there's some weird ones that I don't totally understand why they're on this card. But all in all, I'm excited for it. Some bets to be made. I think there's some money to be made here. Lags, what are you looking forward to the most here?
I'll be honest. I'm a little contrarian to you there. I actually think this is one of the weaker pay-per-view cards. I mean, like name value wise, it's good, but like betting opportunities, I don't have a ton of spots. I only have two strong takes. I don't think that there's like a ton of great fights. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Chanel Royval, great fight, but like I need like a little bit more oomph on a pay-per-view card for me. I don't know.
I don't know, man.
It's a good fight. It's a good fight. Don't get me wrong. It's a good fight, but just like in general, I'm just not. It's a pay-per-view. I'm not as stoked for as like I normally would be, and it's a pay-per-view card. But I'll obviously be watching, no doubt. But
yeah, but I mean, Gaethje Oliveira is probably
it's top. Well, yeah, I just think the top two fights for sure. Like it's very top heavy, but yeah, the bottom half of the card is just pretty.
Yeah, the bottom half of the card's pretty ugly. I'm not gonna fight you on that. But yeah, so I guess with that, we'll jump in here. Guys, if you like the show, please drop a like and subscribe. You can find me on Twitter at MMA Fox and Lags at Danny_Lags. Also, we normally have Luke with us, so you can find at SWR_betting. He is moving out to Vegas. He's on vacation this week. He's in Florida. He's hitting Vegas. Hopefully, he's making some money. I think Lags and I are going to be making some money this week. So with that, we're going to hop right in here. First fight of the night, we got Journey Newson taking on Fernie Garcia. I have a bet here. I have a bet on the first fight of the night, and I got 2 units on Journey Newson, about plus 135. Honestly, like I think any plus money is decent in this spot. I'm not like. It's funny because I was chatting with a couple people who I was kind of arguing about this. So it said, they're both trash. Why bet it? And it's like I don't totally disagree that Journey Newson isn't great and is a lower tier UFC fighter. But the reality is that doesn't mean there's not a value here. And, my view of Fernie Garcia is he's a 30-year-old who basically has been going to split decisions with janitors, like part-time fighters, like literally, I think he's got the 3 splits in his last 5 fights or something, against like really poor competition. And you watch the tape and it's like, there's some stuff to like. He's very high output. He'll come forward. But, like, he doesn't really knock guys out. I don't think there's much power on his shots. He is no head movement at all. Very, very easy to hit. And, he'll attempt takedowns here and there. But, frankly, I don't think his grappling's that good. And my suspicion is he's pretty bad off his back. And on the other side, you have Newson who, look, he can be low volume at times. But he's, like, reasonably technical. He's not easy to hit on the feet, at least to the head. He hits pretty hard. He throws a ton of leg kicks, and that's another thing. Garcia doesn't check him. And at the end of the day, whatever you want to say about Newson, if you look at his regional, career, he was dominating the guys that, Fernie Garcia is going to splits with. He had a competitive fight with Ricardo Ramos, knocked out Dolingo Pilarte, got knocked out by Randy Costa. But just like the guys he's been fighting lately are so much better than the guys that Fernie Garcia is fighting. And when they were fighting similar competition, Newson outperformed him pretty dramatically. And so I look at this and just like, Newson's not good, but you pretty much have to make him a favorite by default here. So, yeah, I lied to him minus 125, minus 150. I have a couple units on him here. What do you think, Lags?
Yeah, I'm not really going to play contrarian here. I get, like, I guess to start off with your first part, like the fading crap with crap, I guess what you were getting with. I don't think Newson, I guess what I should say is, like, I think you're right in the sense that Garcia doesn't really have much power. So it's like, how wrong can you really be? Because it's probably going 15 minutes. So Newson's probably making it a competitive fight. But yeah, I guess what you touched on really with the low volume of Newsom, I guess that's really what's probably holding me off here. I was talking on Magic's pod. I know it's a little juicy, but the over 2.5 minus 160, that to me is a little more enticing. Obviously, I'm not trying to bet it. I think it's just a low level fight in general, but that's where I'd be headed.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I really can't hate on passing on it. Obviously, it's an ugly fight, and it's like
right.
It's not something that I'm like, particularly excited about having money on Journey Newson here, but, I don't think it's the worst spot. But yeah, moving on. We got another fight here. Interesting one. It's women's 115. We got Lupita Godinez. She's making her fifth fight in the UFC, I believe, taking on Ariane Carnelosi, aka the Mini Andrade. Lads, what do you think of this fight?
Yeah, I think Lupi should be able to bully her. Should be able to get takedowns here down the stretch. On the feet, I think it's pretty competitive. But I mean, Arnie just really throws hard. Like she's nothing great, honestly, in my opinion. I don't think her cardio is anything special. I think Lupi has a cardio edge, grappling edge. Should be able to take it down the stretch. If I was going to play it, I was looking at Lupi decision plus 110. That's probably how I would play it.
Yeah, fair. I'm considering playing Loopy here. Honestly, funny story. I actually thought I had bet Loopy at minus 155 on DraftKings last week. And right before we got on here, I was just like cataloging what I had bet. And I must have forgot to press enter on it because I don't have a bet on her. So I'm a little bummed about that because the line is
Yeah.
obviously, moved out a tad. I don't think minus 170 is terrible. I wouldn't be hitting minus 190, but yeah, I mean, I like Loopy here. I think inside minus 185 is a decent shot. The bottom line is, I mean, Carnelosi does some stuff. She's high output. It seems like, she's a reasonable hitter. She will try and grapple. But I just don't think she is like very good at any of those things. Like outside of durability and kind of just proactively doing things, I don't think she does anything at a high level. Whereas Loopy, look, she's young, she's developing, but she's a good boxer. She should be able to win the majority of striking exchanges, even if Carnelosi is, staying in her face. And she's a very good wrestler, especially on her initial shots here. And Carnelosi, I know she just out grappled Estela Nunes, but like I don't really rate Nunes. And if you watch her fight with Na Liang, and I know Liang has subbed a bunch of people early, but just her approach, both in terms of how she was defending takedowns and how she was reacting on her back, like she wasn't really making proactive moves to create space and get up. She was kind of fighting from her back. Just kind of make me think Loopy should have recovered here, especially because Loopy doesn't really have any cardio issues. And so it's like, if she's not going to slow down and she's the better striker and she should be able to get takedowns in top position wherever she wants. I know it's women's MMA and I know the line's a bit wide, but it's like, I'm happy to take the fighter that's going to attempt 6-7 takedowns, likely get a bunch of them, get a ton of top time, and win most striking exchanges. So I think there's a decent amount of value on Luffy at the current price. Moving on, we got Clayton Rodriguez. He's taking on TJ Vergara. Clayton was originally supposed to fight Zaruk Adashev. That was booked a couple months ago. I actually had a small play on Adashev when that was initially booked. Now he's taking on TJ Vergara, who I actually bet against in his last fight with O'Day Osborne, which was a fairly interesting fight, to be honest, because Vergara looked predictably bad early in that fight. But he keeps a very high pace and he's very durable, and he started to come on late in that fight and won the last round pretty convincingly. Looking at this, look, I know there's some people that are high on Clayton Rodriguez. I'm just not. I'm just not sure what he is. Like people are putting a lot of stock in his contenders performance against Santo Curatolo, who, if we're being honest, could probably fight at men's 115 over in Ryzen. Like the guy was just a tiny, tiny flyweight. And Rodriguez is a decent size, like probably big for flyweight. This size is just too much. And I also just don't like he seems to have decent distance management tools, but I don't know really what else he has. Like, is he a good grappler? I don't really know. Like maybe, is he going to be good in the pocket against a good fighter? I don't know. Is he going to deal with leg kicks well? I don't know. Is his cardio going to look good when someone actually, takes the fight to him and forces a high output fight? Again, I don't know. On the other side, you have Vergara, who I just like, I don't really rate. The problem is I've actually been thinking about fading Rodriguez, but Vergara is just like, as long as you don't stand directly in front of him, he's so easy to deal with. And it's like, could he come on late here? I guess. Could he maybe just be too much pressure? I guess. But like guys who can't cut off the cage and are just pretty easy to sidestep, their pressure doesn't matter nearly as much as someone who can just stay in your face. And I do think one of the things Clayton can do effectively is kind of move laterally. And so I don't know. I mean, if the line keeps going, maybe I'll have a poke, but I sort of think Rodriguez deals with him. I'd just like to find out some more data here. What do you think, Legs?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of good talking point, really, because I think Clayton just seems really green watching the tape. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously he's the much bigger guy, the bigger hitter here. I think he probably does have a grappling edge, but it's like he's beating a bunch of nobodies, really. So it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think Vergara is anything special either, but like, I think Clayton's a bit hittable, which we're kind of watching his tape a little bit, but like, the guy seems like a physical specimen. The variety of strikes seem nice, has decent grappling, like I touched on. I just wouldn't be laying the chalk here, really. I guess I know Magic was talking about the under on the pod. I don't really have a strong take there. I think Vergara seems kind of tough in that aspect, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, under could be decent, but I kind of agree with you because Ode hits reasonably, especially for flyweight. Ode's a
I'm pretty
decent
sure
hitter.
I'm pretty sure I didn't look top of my head, but I'm pretty sure I had the under 2.5 in that fight. I played it small for like a unit, I think. Kind of.
Yeah, and he blasted him a bunch that fight, So I don't know. It's very weird, and it's also kind of weird that he did fight Jonathan Martinez regionally, and he went to a split with him. Like I would happily take Jonathan Martinez against Clayton, but I don't know, man. I struggle to feel passionate about it.
Yeah.
Moving on, we got Tracy Cortez. She's taking on Melissa Gato, who's coming off breaking my heart and my bankroll against Sajara Eubanks. Lads, what do you think of this fight?
I ditto that sentiment. I also had Sarge in that spot. Yeah, and I guess that's kind of where my issue is. I thought Sarge is a much better wrestler. Is a much better wrestler than Tracy. I think she's a much better finisher in top position. So it's like it's kind of same number here with Tracy. I'm not super interested in it. I think she can land takedowns. I think she can have top time. I don't really see a ton of finishing potential from Gato off her back. On the feet, it's close. Gato obviously going to be hitting harder, so optically probably looks better for her. I guess to me it just seems like a close fight where it's like I would lay, like old me would lay Tracy Cortez here. She loses a close split because the optics on the feet, something like that. So yeah, it's a pass.
It's a weird fight. Cortez is the kind of fighter I don't know. There's something about her that rubs me the wrong way, even though she has a pretty good process. She attempts a lot of takedowns. She tends to control the majority of her fights, which are obviously both great traits, has pretty good cardio. But like the Kish fight, for instance, that is such a great style matchup on paper. And she won the fight, but like
barely.
It was a dicier fight than it needed to be, And so the idea, I didn't really have much interest in this fight, but as the line has continued to come in, I know some sharp people on Gatos, or so do you. But like the more it comes in, I'm not quite there, but I'm getting tempted on Cortez. Like I actually think I might bet her at -125 or better. I get the angle on Gato. I do. She's very dangerous off her back. She's obviously higher output on the feet. She might even be a bit of a better striker, to be honest. But what I can't shake is, whatever you think about Tracy Cortez, she's a pretty good wrestler. It's not as lower body centric as I'd like it to be. There's a lot of trips from the upper body, stuff like that, but she is effective at it. And she's going to get takedowns here. Like I really don't rate Gato's takedown defense at all, to be honest. Like if you actually go and look, watch her fight with Eubanks again and look at what happened both times Eubanks went for a double leg. Gato doesn't really spread her base at all. It's just very, very easy to get your hands under her hips and lock them. And if a wrestler can get their hands locked there, you're going down. It doesn't really matter what else you're doing. You're getting taken down there. And on the mat, Gato plays guard. That's what she does. She plays off her back. She fishes for submissions. She throws elbows. She's good at it. But the reality is if Gato can't hit a sub off bottom and she's on bottom, she's probably losing the round. She's probably not going to get up. She's not going to make much effort for it. And so it's a weird dynamic because I do think, like watching Cortez when she's fought other black belts, who she's beaten, but she does get awfully close to getting armbarred, like quite a bit, and like Gato's probably got a slicker guard than the other, black belts that she's fought. So I'm torn because on the one hand, I'm like, that is the fact that I could very easily envision her getting subbed off bottom is almost enough for me to stay away at chalk. But on the other hand, it's like, what percentage can you really put on a guard sub? Cortez is young. She's at a good camp. She's a pretty good grappler. Like, can I really say Gato's going to suffer from guard more than like 20 to 25% of the time? Like, that seems extreme. And if she doesn't, I don't know. Unless Cortez has a stroke, she's got to fight like pretty stupid to not get top time and win a decision here. Her losing a decision would have to be pretty weird. So I don't know. Like I kind of think there's value on Cortez. I'm not laying the minus 150, but minus 125, and I'm betting on somebody who I know if it goes 15 is probably getting 8 to 10 minutes of control. Seems a little dumb. Yeah. Moving on, we got Cameron Van Camp. He's taking on Andre Fiallo, who's making a quick turnaround after taking some of my money against Miguel Baeza. I don't really have a strong feeling here. Maybe that fight doesn't go the distance. I kind of think Fiallo handles him pretty easily. Van Camp, I guess, theoretically has a grappling path here. I just don't think he's a good grappler, and I don't think it's something that's going to translate to the UFC. On the feet, Fiallo should butcher him. Yeah, I don't have a lot of thoughts here. Fiallo rolls. How about you?
Yeah, again, don't really have a lot of thoughts. I guess I'll really touch on the odds, I guess, while we're on best fight odds. I guess we touched on the fight doesn't go, it's minus 270, and you have the under 1.5 is at Pick'em. So
under is not terrible. I mean, Fiallo's got what, 6 wins inside of round 1?
And Fiallo ITD is minus 145.
It's not awful. And I just hate laying a minus number on ITD,
right.
It's just like
Yeah.
So it's the kind of thing that it's going to look very obvious in hindsight right after he kills him. But like if we actually put money on him, Van Camp's going to do Chris Matinho and sit there and get dropped 6 times and just keep coming forward. I have very little doubt that that's how this would go. So happy to pass it. Moving on. We got a great fight here, though. I'm super excited for this fight. We got Bulgoi Ivanov. He's coming back off a 2-year hiatus against Marcos Rogerio Pesao de Lima. He's coming back after cashing some money for us against Ben Rothwell. Lags, what do you think?
I got a lot to say here, to be honest with you. I guess I should say first, to me, like off the top, this seems to me the fight like how you have the Journey Newsom fight for you. Like this is me on de Lima this week. Like I'm preaching a lot on him because I think he's a decent dog. But I guess to start off the bat, yeah, we cashed big on him against Green, Maurice Green minus 140, and then against Ben Rothwell plus 125 and the under 2.5, which was a great spot. And I kind of think similarly here, the longer I've been thinking about it this week, I think the under 2.5 FanDuel has it at minus 118. I actually think that's a decent spot because to me, I mean, I get it. Bulgoi's been historically durable heavyweight, absolutely eating nukes. But yeah, de Lima hits hard as shit, has huge leg kicks early. Bulgoi's coming off a 2-year-long layoff. Like, why can't de Lima knock him out? I get it. He's super durable. I get it.
Didn't Sakai wobble Bulgoi, if I'm not mistaken?
Sakai wobbled him, Lewis wobbled him, and Ty wobbled him. I get the guy hasn't been finished, but the guy's been
not Sakai, Ty. Sorry, I meant Ty.
Sorry, Ty. I was gonna say Ty. Not okay. Yeah, Ty and Lewis. So to me, I like the under here. I think de Lima obviously is alive early to finish him, but I guess what's interesting to me and why I'd rather have a money line play also as well as the under, I think de Lima could win a decision here, like we just touched on. I think Bulgoi could be durable enough. De Lima lands the bigger shots, but again, obviously, if he gets taken down once here, I could see Bulgoi subbing him. It's not out of the question really, but he's just not a proactive wrestler. So
the over isn't or under isn't something I had thought about, but like.
I wasn't either until I saw that number, and I'm just that doesn't make a lot of sense for the matchup, really.
You make
Bulgoi's got to. Sorry, I got to keep cutting you off. Bulgoi's got to wrestle here because de Lima just comes out with those leg kicks, throwing hard shots and whatnot. Bulgoi lands on top of him, and he's on top of him. What, a minute into the fight? This would be looking great for the under, but yeah.
Yeah, you actually make a pretty good case, honestly, because like you're right. I mean, my biggest issue with Pesao's career is like so many of his fights just end early. So the data of him extended isn't great. And the fights where he has been extended, the Wajorek fight and the Green fight, he just blanketed them for 15 minutes, So it's like, I know he's not blanketing Bulgoi, I know that is not happening. I'm 100% positive that it's not going to be a top game clinic from de Lima here. So how will he look in an extended striking fight? I don't know. What I do know, though, is he hits pretty hard. He does, to your point, throw leg kicks, probably better leg kicks than Ty throws, to be honest. And Bulgoi's going to come forward and push a pace. So, like, on the one hand, I had like mild temptations about Bulgoi because he is durable, and I do think if he wants to, but I actually heard you on Clint's show earlier mention this, and it was a good shout out. Bulgoi only attempts one takedown for 15. Like I think if Bulgoi came out here and was like, "I'm putting De Lima on bottom here," he could look like a big favorite. Like he really could, but he's not reliable to really do that, and so if he comes into the pocket and bangs it out here, I do kind of favor Bulgoi in that fight just because I do think he's a bit tougher. And I think we haven't seen Lima extended because he's been finishing everybody early. But if he doesn't finish Bulgoi, I don't have a lot of reason to think if he faces adversity on the feet, it'll go much different than when he faces adversity on the mat. Just my gut feeling. So I was tempted by Bulgoi, but honestly, you're right. DeLima can crack. He could put him out. He's got decent jiu-jitsu if he did get on top. I think that under is a decent shout, honestly. Moving on though, we got Brandon Raw Dog Royval. He's taking on Matt Dangerous now. This is an awesome fight. I'm being tortured into maybe fading Royval again. I can't. Honestly, it might have been like a message from God because I haven't bet it yet, and I saw in our Discord combat post that he saw Schnell hosted his father's funeral last week. Sucks. I'm sorry. That's horrible to hear. And then he also got married 2 weeks ago. I'm not a narrative guy, but that might be enough to keep me from completely jumping all in on the Matt Schnell train this week. But with that said, I kind of do think there's value on him. Look, I've lost oodles of money on Brandon Royval fights. A lot. I'm badly in the red on his fights. So it's like, do I really want to go jumping down that rabbit hole again? I don't know. But what I do know is, look, Royval doesn't have any defense. He just doesn't. I love his style. It's a lot of pace. Great output. He is damaging with his knees and elbows, but what he doesn't, where I don't think he's damaging, and like I know everybody's going to talk up Matt Schnell's chin, I don't really think his hands are very powerful. I don't think he's a great boxer. I'm actually pretty sure in the pocket, Schnell's going to light him up with his boxing. It's really a question of can he keep him off him, in the clinch and stuff. And I know the Schnell chin narrative is out there, but like Royval's getting dropped on 2% of the landed distance strikes against him at flyweight. Like that is pretty fragile. Schnell hurt Pantoja on the feet. I don't know. I kind of think the line's a little crazy, especially since Schnell's got good jiu-jitsu. I don't think he's going to get subbed here. So I'm tempted by Schnell. I am nervous that he's going to just melt to a spinning elbow. I feel like that's probably going to happen. But skill-wise, he's not plus 200 against Brandon Royval. I'm 100% certain of that. What do you think, Lex?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the big elephant in the room for me. Is just kind of, Schnell's chin. And it's like you could see Royval easily just spinning elbow, flying knee, just knocking him out cold. But like, yeah, like you touched on, skill for skill, Matt Schnell shouldn't be plus 200 here. But it's like, I don't trust the volume on his end either. So versus a guy in Royval who does,
nothing but volume.
Nothing but volume and fuck all everything. So yeah, so I guess this really isn't the fade spot for me on Royval.
Yeah, like skill for skill, I think you could make a reasonable case for Schnell favorite. I think jiu-jitsu wise, they're close. They're pretty similar. Neither is a good wrestler. Schnell's certainly the better boxer, right?
I was talking on Clint's show a little bit. I was hoping for a better number. I was looking at it, the Schnell decision only, and it's a plus 110. I was thinking that was.
Is it plus 110? That's kind of annoying.
I was thought it was going to be much better than that. Like,
because like Royval could theoretically steal a decision wobbling him a couple times. Right. It is weird because like I have been anti Royval, and like most of the things that like I don't like about Royval are still there. He still can't defend takedowns. He's still a guard player. He's not
a good men winner.
No, but I will give him credit though. Kind of similar to like Tony Ferguson, who we'll talk about later. He uses the tools he does have to the best of his ability. Great cardio. He comes at and throws a lot of really weird, diverse stuff. He basically, instead of sitting at range and getting picked apart, forces you to steer into chaos. And in chaos, he thrives, So, and I don't think Matt Schnell thrives in chaos, which is one of my. Matt Schnell wants a beautiful fight. He does not want, the fight where guys are testing chins. So, I don't know. I think there's value on Schnell. I do. And I'm probably going to bet him, but I feel like I'm going to regret it, Anyway.
Yep, I feel you.
That's my dissertation on Matt Schnell and Brandon Royval. Moving on, we have
I love it.
Macy Chiasson. She's taking on Norma Dumont, who has also taken a lot of the Club and Sub podcast money over the years. Lags, what do you think here?
Big Norm. Yeah, she's been a bane of our existence, I should say. Yeah, this isn't the face spot as a fader of Big Norm, I should say. Yeah, I mean, you want a girl that's going to come out here trying to grapple her, really, and I don't think Macy's going to be able to land takedowns here. I think Norma should be able to butcher her on the feet, lands the hardest shots. I think she can control her against the clinch, really. I mean, I think this is a solid spot for Norma, really.
Honestly, I'm more worried. I actually think Macy can hang on the feet here, to be honest. Like, I've been tempted by Macy. She doesn't have much defense, but, I'm not sure. Like, if you look at Dumont's career, it's Ashley Evans Smith, rip 3 units on Ashley Evans Smith, but also not really the best striker we've ever seen. Felicia Spencer, rip 2 units on Felicia Spencer. Also not the best striker we've ever seen. And Aspen Ladd, rip 2 units on Aspen Ladd. Who is a horrible striker and basically refused to engage in that fight. The only other time we've seen Dumont in the UFC, other than those 3 fights, was Megan Anderson, who flatlined her, obviously, although kind of hilarious in hindsight, since plus 400 Dumont was probably enormous value, but I don't know, man. Like, my big fear here is more the grappling than anything else, because I do think Dumont can get put out. And I think Chiasson in the clinch on the feet, even though I don't like her defense, I think she's busy enough to keep this fight close on minutes and probably has some KO upside. My question with Macy is, it's just like, when she ends up on bottom and things go south, they tend to snowball south in a hurry on her. Like, you look at the Pennington fight, she was fighting fairly well in that fight. And then it all just seemed to go downhill in a hurry. Same thing in the Landsberg fight, And Dumont, I do think if she wants them, can likely get takedowns here. And she's a big woman who is okay on top and is a black belt. And that's kind of really my point of concern. It's just like, I know Chiasson's value standing, but if Dumont does take the path of least resistance, I think she could cover her price. So I don't know. I'm thinking about Macy. I really do think on the feet this is a close fight, but the grappling is enough that I'm not like overly tempted. We're exposed enough to WMA dogs tonight on this card, I think. But moving on, we got a great one here, though. We got Francisco Trinaldo, Masaranduba, 43 years old. He's taking on Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. I love my guy, Francisco Trinaldo. I have been a fader of Hot Chocolate in the past. I honestly thought about betting him this week because I do think we're getting to the point with Trinaldo where it's like, he looks like he's starting to go over the cliff, to be honest. Like, he hasn't he's winning fights, but he's a little slower than he used to be. Even to move up to welterweight, you would think, it would, lend itself to him, at least from a speed advantage standpoint. It doesn't look like he has that. We saw him get hurt bad by Jai Herbert. He got hurt bad by Muslim Salikov. I don't know. I kind of think it's starting to go for him. My issue with Roberts is, look, Roberts can hit reasonably hard. He can push a pace when he wants to, but I think he leaves a lot of openings. I think he's chinny himself. Trinaldo tends to do a good job at minimizing volume and countering volume pretty hard, which makes me think Roberts will probably give him a, low volume kickboxing match. And if that's the case, I don't know. I think there's an angle for Roberts based on Trinaldo's durability going, maybe just the volume, but it's going to be – I need someone to be a little better than Danny Roberts to fade Trinaldo at this point until I know Trinaldo's shot, So it's a pass for me. I think the line's more or less correct. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess I would say that really. I don't think there's much of an edge, really, because I just kind of think it's more like what you touched on, that low like you touched on, I think it's a low output volume kickboxing type of affair, really. I don't think either guy's chin is great. I guess you would kind of lean on the Danny side, sort of. I mean, I don't know. To me, Trinaldo's looking really slow. I had him over Dwight Grant, and that just was not great on rewatch. I thought that was an easy fight for him on paper, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think this is a close fight, goes the distance. Not a strong take either way.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on though, we have a great one here. This is really kind of where the card kicks into gear. We got Randy Brown. He's
Yeah,
taking on Chaos Williams. What do you think?
this is kind of another one for me. This is literally the same thing as the last fight. Like I could see a world where Chaos gets his leg kicks off, lands the bigger shots, maybe puts out Randy, maybe. But I could see a world where Randy maybe sticks a move, length and volume on the outside. I think it could be a problem for him, for Chaos, that is. I don't know. To me, I think the leg kicks are going to be there for Chaos, but I just don't think he's anything special outside of big power. Like I don't think he's anything UFC talent outside of the big power. So yeah, easy pass.
Yeah, it's funny because Chaos was a guy I obviously faded early in his career with Pereira. I was pretty bearish
Same.
about his future in the UFC. But honestly, I've kind of come around a tad to like what he does well. It's very janky and kind of unconventional, but like he's an explosive athlete who's kind of figured out how to use his explosion. He's basically going to try to get you to go first and then counter with a blitz and just fight in bursts like that. And when he's not blitzing you, throw big leg kicks. And he carries big power and seems to be pretty durable. And so, those are good combinations. I still have like, and that in and of itself, like I'm a Randy Brown guy. I think he is more skilled than he gets credit for being. He's a good striker. He's a good grappler when he goes for it. But he is massively susceptible to leg kicks, and he can get chinned at times. We've seen it happen before. And I think those both favor Chaos. The reason I'm not betting Chaos here, though, it's just like, the regional grappling footage of Chaos Williams is really ugly. It's really ugly. It's why I was so bearish on him. And then, he got to the UFC. It looked really bad in the Pereira fight. He got 2 takedowns with relative ease, got his back with almost no problem at all. And then it looked, again, not very good in the Miguel Baeza fight, to be honest. It only looked okay because Baeza, instead of actually just solidifying top on him, decided to go for a heel hook and got his face smashed in. But, I don't know, man. Like I still think those holes are probably there, and I think Brown has the skills to capitalize here. It's just, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the Ivanov fight. It's like Brown doesn't really go for takedowns all that often. And so while I think, the case is there to be made, and I remember everyone making this case about Baeza against him, and it's why I passed, who also doesn't grapple that often. It's like, if he doesn't do that, well, then what? Then it's like we watch Randy Brown get his leg chopped off for, 8 minutes until he gets flatlined. And like we saw the Luque fight, Brown really didn't go for takedowns when hindsight, it was there.
And got his leg chewed up.
Yeah, exactly. Even while he was getting his leg chewed up, didn't go for takedowns. And so it's like, I'm a Randy Brown fan. I think he has the tools to win this fight. But if he doesn't fight optimally, I think Chaos eats him alive. And that's kind of where I am coming down here. Is I think Chaos more likely than not. So I'm passing this, but I don't hate a Brown play. Honestly, I think it's Brown or pass. Moving on though, great fight here. We got Cowboy Cerrone making what could be his last fight in the UFC against the legend Joe Lauzon, and what also could be his last fight in the UFC. This fight is a hilarious mess. Cerrone, I bet him in his last fight against Alex Morono. That was really quite horrendous. He looked awful. He hasn't looked good in quite a while, if we're being honest. He looks slow. He looks wooden. He always had kind of early round chin problems, but he usually would kind of get his legs under him, and you're starting to see that even wear away too. I don't know. Cerrone's not a guy I really want to be trusting with my money these days. But Joe Lauzon on the other side, last seed finishing Jonathan Pierce in round 1. I bet Pierce there. That was painful. Joe Lauzon, the bottom line is he probably has to get Cerrone out of there in 4 minutes. Just the bottom, Lauzon's got remarkably bad cardio to an absurd degree. To super, no, I bet Newson at plus 130, not as a favorite. But no, Lauzon is, he's very reliable. 4 minutes in, the gas tank goes, and by mid round 2, it's gone. And so I do obviously think Cerrone is more likely than not to win this fight, but I kind of think Lauzon is pretty live to get him out of there early, man. Lauzon's dangerous early in fights. We saw it in his last fight. We saw it against Gritzmacher. We've seen it a bunch. I wouldn't be shocked if he KOs Cerrone in the first round here. I'm trying to find what his round one is right now.
1400.
Round 1400 just to win in round one?
KO round one.
KO, okay. Do you know what it is to win in round one?
Round one was 800 last time I looked. Let me take a look at that.
That's fucking crazy if that's the case.
Yeah, let me get a look at that for you. So FanDuel has round one at plus 800, and then they have. Let me find the KO round one. KO round one is 1400.
That's nuts. Honestly, because I really think that is like the large majority of Lauzon's win equity. But like Joe is like very reliable to go for it. He's going to come out here and bite the mouthpiece. And Cowboy is meltable early in fights. But yeah, so like I honestly am probably going to play that. I think that's pretty good. I don't play round props like ever, but it just seems like such a binary fight in that respect. But I guess in terms of how I think the fight's going to go, Lauzon's probably going to come out and hurt him early and then gas out and die. I think Cerrone probably takes over and finishes him. But yeah, go Joe Lauzon. I would like to see him get one more. Lags, what do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say if anything, if I would have like a quarter unit on that round one number, that 1400, that's pretty crazy. And then I was actually thinking so we'll talk about it later at the end of the podcast. But for the insurance parlay the FanDuel does the promo, I'm looking at the under 2.5 in this fight. It's minus 174. I like that.
I actually like that a lot. That's actually not honest because like, what does I'm not a juice
because of gas.
guy
I know
because
it's like a gas Joe Lauzon. Cerrone's probably finishing him, right?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't
like.
I kind of thought it would be like minus 300 to be honest. Yeah, I mean, for this to go the distance, Lauzon probably has to massively outperform the cardio we've seen from him in his last 5 fights. That's actually
the fight doesn't go minus 186. Yeah, I'd probably just go with that actually instead of the under 2.5.
Really not bad.
Fight doesn't go minus 186.
I don't mind that at all. That I have to think about that. That's really not bad at all. But yeah, my favorite spot is Joe round one. Moving on, Lags, I'll throw it to you here. We got Oben St. Preux. He's taking on Mauricio Shogun, who this is a fight that I was about to say it should have been made 10 years ago, but it was made 10 years ago. And now, for some reason, is being made again. What are your thoughts?
Kind of similar to the last fight in the sense that I probably won't have anything super strong on it. I actually like at all, but like again, under 2.5 rounds for the insurance parlay, minus 172. Kind of think that's good as well. Like, and then OSP KO is sitting at plus 250. I mean, not to be a narrative guy, but I kind of sort of think we see a rerun here. Like Shogun's durability is not looking great. If OSP is anything that anything that he was really, I think you should be able to finish him here. To be honest with you, Shogun's just looking dead as of late.
My only problem with the under here is it's just like we saw this fight with Ben Rothwell, right? Like pretty much a couple years ago. It could very easily just devolve into gassed OSP and Shogun fighting in the clinch or staring at each other 8 minutes into the fight.
Fair.
But yeah, I mean, I could never bet Shogun. He's just he's just looked so bad, and OSP has too. It's a gross fight. Why this is on the main card, I don't know. I guess I come down where you do. Like, I think OSP, even at both the respective peaks and now, still has some athleticism left in him, whereas Shogun is just so wooden and old. And so it's like, when in doubt, you have two guys, both with questionable durability, both at the tail end of their careers. Give me the gigantic athlete, I guess, but it's hard to feel good about, this fight in any way, shape, or form. Up next, though, we got a good one. We got Michael Chandler. He's coming back off a crazy fight with Justin Gaethje. He's fighting Tony Ferguson, who I've been fading for the better part of 2 years. Successfully fading, I may add. I feel like I was onto the Ferguson can't wrestle thing way before most of the market was, and was able to hit Oliveira and Dariush because of that. But it's funny because in theory, when you look at, this fight, Chandler on paper has the tools to go out there and wrestle him and do what Oliveira and Beneil Dariush did, right? But I'm not really completely sold on it. You look at break down Michael Chandler's game, it is power wrestling and like a lot of explosion. I don't think he's a very technical striker when it comes to boxing. Defensively, he's obviously very, very, open and also very, very fragile. It's actually it's a minor miracle, and I think God just kind of decided that was going to miss against the Gaethje fight for all the people that parlayed up doesn't go the distance. How he made it to the bell there, yeah.
Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. Had the under 2.5 parlayed up. Yep.
How he did it, he made it to the bell there, I'll never know. But Chandler, look, the bottom line is, look, the guy is extremely powerful. He's a great athlete. He's very fast. He can put out anybody early in fights. But also, when you look at Chandler, he's really got 4 to 5 big bursts in him every fight, and then he is gassed out. That's the story of his career. He's very open to be hit. He is hurtable. And usually what he defaults to when he's gassed is wrestling and laying in your guard to rest because he is a good wrestler. Ferguson on the other side is almost the complete polar opposite. He's also open defensively, but the guy is a concrete chin and has elite cardio. We know Ferguson will push a pace. We know if you tire against Ferguson, he will put it on you. The real question becomes here, how likely is Chandler to KO him early? And how likely is he to be able to get top time for the entire fight? And to the first part, Ferguson's old. He's 38. Chandler's 36, though. Could he get KO'd early? I suppose, but the last data we have of him standing is going to war with Justin Gaethje for 25 minutes and only getting stopped because Herb Dean stopped the fight. He was still on his feet at the end. And in terms of the wrestling, sorry, I don't know. Like, I know Chandler can get him down and get on top of him. I have very little doubt about that. But Chandler's preferred method for getting on top of people is kind of just resting in guard and getting his energy back. But Tony's not a guy who's going to let you rest in guard. Like, I don't think Tony guard sub is like a super live outcome. But I think Tony firing up a bunch of elbows, making him, while he's gassed, very uncomfortable and not wanting to go there, or just forcing a scramble, because he is pretty live. He did actually force scrambles against both Oliveira and Dariush on the ground. The problem is they just both beat him to the position every time. I'm not really convinced that gassed out Chandler will, and I'm not really convinced after eating 3 or 4 elbows on the mat, he's going to want to hang out down there. And so I don't know. Like, I'm looking at this fight, and it's like I get Chandler being a favorite. The wrestling upside alone is enough to do that, but the truth is, I'm not sure Chandler is tangibly more likely than Ferguson to get a KO here. I know Tony's not known for his power, but weaker hitters than Tony have hurt Chandler and put him out in the past. If it does turn out that Chandler either can't control him on the mat or ends up not pursuing the wrestling as much, and these two guys are fighting down the stretch, Ferguson's going to put it the fuck on him. I think he is on the backside of his career. It's pretty clear. But at the end of the day, Mike Chandler right now, minus 400, is being lined wider than he was against Benson Henderson's corpse 2 years ago at Bellator. Like, what the hell is going on here? Yeah, I'm not going big on Tony, but to me, you're giving me a massive durability and cardio advantage. A guy that's fought way better competition, who's been around way longer, against a guy who's just all explosion based. That's not a plus 300. Michael Chandler is not an 80% fighter. I like Tony here. I'm going to be betting him. What do you think?
I'm not trying to extrapolate the line, I guess, too much because obviously lines change and whatnot. Everybody's opinions change, but we're 3 fights removed from Justin Gaethje being plus 165 to Tony Ferguson, and we're now sitting Chandler minus 400 over Tony Ferguson. I think this is an interesting fight because I kind of think that the only way you can even remotely get to that number is saying that Chandler puts him out in the first round, really? I mean, so Chandler KO 1, it's plus 310. I think if you were going to play the fight, I'd probably do that and then play Tony as well, because I kind of think if it makes it out of the first round, Tony makes this a competitive fight, really. Like, I don't really see how it's not a competitive fight, I guess I should say, with the cardio dynamic. So, but yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, like, so the one other thing I didn't mention, it's like, if you actually look at the takedowns Chandler was attempting against Gaethje in round 2 of their fight, after he started to slow down, he was shooting from about halfway out. That's a really dangerous game. Tony may be easy to take down against the fence, but shooting from 8 feet out is a really dangerous game to play with a guy with the front choke game that Ferguson has. Yeah,
So what you're saying is you're playing Tony Ferguson by sub at 15-1.
Be the first guy to ever sub Mike Chandler.
Yeah,
I actually
that'd be
don't think
nuts.
it's
That'd
that
be nuts.
crazy. I
Yeah,
don't think it's that crazy. Chandler's
and you're getting
old,
the
and they're
number.
both old. It
Yeah,
is a big number. But yeah, I mean, I have to play Ferguson. It'll probably be like just like a unit, maybe a unit and a half. But like, you mentioned he was a favorite against Gaethje. He was like minus 200. He was also a favorite against Charles. 2 fights ago. So yeah, I don't know. In Ferguson, we trust. But moving on, we got.
not to mention, I think Benny was only minus 140 over
Yeah,
Tony.
about that. We were big on Benny there. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was. I mean, and Benny is like a more. I'm trying to do the best way to say it because Chandler's obviously an excellent wrestler, like no question. But when it comes to actually being on top and being on the flow to position, Dariush and Oliveira are miles ahead of Chandler in that regard.
and not to mention, I would also trust the process of Benio. Not that it's obviously like the slugging on the feet doesn't look great in the close fight, but it's like his process is much better than Chandler. Like if I'm betting Benny against Tony, I know Benny's going to come out here and wrestle. Whereas that's the big thing too. That's the big thing. Is Chandler going to come out here and wrestle? He hasn't done it at all yet. So it's like if you think he's going to be minus 400 standing, you have to assume that he just nukes him early, right?
Well, that's the other thing. You're right, and I didn't even mention that. Like Chandler in his last like 5 fights, like he came out instead of Justin Gaethje, who we just saw 2 fights ago was a fish on his back. Chandler came out and tried to knock his head off until he was gassed. And Gaethje was an All-American wrestler. You obviously weren't going to take him down tired. The fight, back in Bellator, he fights Brent Primus and waited until Primus almost took his head off before he starts wrestling in that fight. The guy, he is a ball of energy who kind of goes where the fight takes him. I think the idea that he's going to come out and fight to a disciplined 3-round game plan is like it's not backed up by reality. It's just not. So maybe it'll happen. Maybe this will be at 36 years old, 35 fights into his career, be the time that he's like, okay, I'm gonna attempt 10 takedowns and just control him. I don't know. I'm willing to pay to find out. I'll tell you that much. But now we got the people's main event. We had the club and sub main event anyway. Certainly my main event. We got Carla, Cookie Monster Esparza, Rose Namajunas, the rematch, legs.
Yes. Well, for me, the main event is still the main event because the bet I have on it and the fight in general, the matchup. But, nonetheless, Cookie Monster, Carla Esparza. I think to me, there's nothing really that I've seen in the grappling from Rose to really give me any kind of confidence here. I mean, with the Wiley, the second fight, we saw her getting taken down quite easily, held down quite easily. Carla's the best wrestler in the division, probably one of the best wrestlers in women's MMA history. So you're giving us plus 165. I don't think Rose KO is that live of an outcome. I said it earlier. To me, I think the finishing potential of both is actually quite equal. I think if this fight hits the ground, I think Carla's super live to get a finish. And if this fight's standing, like I said, Rose could KO her. It's live. But I don't know. To me, Carla has a huge grappling edge. She should be able to get takedowns here with ease. And I have a small play here on there by sub quarter unit plus 1,500. I think that number is insane. I think she's going to be able to get those dominant positions and potentially get a finish. So unit and a half on her plus 165, quarter unit plus 1,500 on the sub. And what's crazy? Sorry. FanDuel now has the sub at plus 1,800 for some reason. I guess it got moved back up a little bit, and I know they have the ITD at plus 700.
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah, this is, I think, the best line value of the year we've had to date, to be honest. I actually have a max bet on Carla. I have 5 units on her money line, plus 175. I have a significant amount of money on her ITD at plus 800. I guess looking at this fight, I think the narrative and the common thought process is Rose in her first fight doesn't really matter that much because obviously it was 8 years ago. Rose is a different fighter. She's champion now. She's been fighting nothing but championship fights, which on the one hand is an accurate statement, especially if you look at Rose's stand-up. Her stand-up is miles better than it was then. Her lateral movement's a lot better. Her management of distance is a lot better. She throws better in combination than she ever did back then. On the other side of things, though, like what lost that fight for her when you look at it? It's the grappling, right? It's the fact that Carla was able to take her down over and over until she broke and eventually finished her there. And I don't think that's changed that much. So, like, Rose has had kind of a weird run in the fact that she hasn't really fought any other wrestlers on this entire run-up, I guess the closest thing would have been Andrade, who took her down, I think, 3 times across their 2 fights, and that's really it. And if you look at how she actually approached getting up against Carla, nothing's really changed. It's really try to make space for the knee slide and go immediately to an armbar or a Kimura trap and just try to attack submissions to either sub the person or reverse position and get up that way. But she didn't have technical get-ups back then, and Carla is absolutely elite at passing on sub attempts. I would argue, I don't know if she has a black belt or not yet, but combined with the wrestling, her jiu-jitsu is black belt level. and so, she was able to punish her by that and just constantly get to dominant positions. You saw Rose do the exact same thing against Jessica Andrade, and then you go to her last fight against Weili Zhang. Zhang went 5 of 11 on takedown attempts. They were pretty weak attempts, to be honest with you. They were not strong. She didn't get good entries on any of them, really. And on bottom, you saw the exact same approach from Rose. Try to threaten with submissions to get up that way. If they didn't work, she didn't have much else to do. And we actually even saw at one point in that fight, Zhang mount her in the fight. And I got to tell you, I know people want to give a lot of credence to it because Weili Zhang was the champion. Zhang's not a great grappler. Like, you touched on it, but Carla Esparza, probably after Tatiana Suarez, is probably almost certainly the second best wrestler in the history of women's MMA. And she has an excellent top game. It's not as punishing as someone as Tatiana's, but it's very control based, and she throws a lot of ground and pound. And if you let her get to a dominant position, as you saw in the Yan Xiaonan fight, she'll throw actually pretty vicious ground and pound. I remember you and I talked about it, and I was hoping, we'd get Zhang Carla and get Carla like plus 400 or something if Zhang beat Rose. Because I know she would have just absolutely dumpstered Zhang, to be honest. Sorry for any Zhang fans out there, but that's probably what would have happened. But I kind of feel similarly here. Like, you look at Rose defend takedowns, her hips are very, very weak. She doesn't have a great sprawl when people get inside on her. She doesn't do a great job public for underhooks. She tends to just tip over. It's very easy to throw her off balance. She's almost like, the Dwight Grant baby deer, when she's out there and you have her arms wrapped around her. And Carla has great entries. Like, go watch the Marina fight. Marina probably manages distance as well as Rose does. Marina was only able to land 15 strikes across 3 rounds from distance. And by the way, I actually think Marina on bottom is better than Rose. She retains guard very, very well. We've seen that over and over now. Whereas Rose is going to try to attack submissions, and Carla is just going to pass. And so, I look at this fight, and I understand the angle that Rose's stand-up advantage is as wide as Carla's grappling advantage, and I agree with that. The truth of the matter is Rose could knock her out here. She could land a head kick again. She could knock her out standing. But at the end of the day, it's WMMA. Rose has 3 knockdowns in her career. She's not someone who's out here. She's not the WMMA version of Francis Ngannou. She's not Amanda Nunes. The chances of her landing a KO, even if it stayed standing for 15, aren't super high, which obviously would be a lot higher then. But in 25. This case, 25, sorry. But in this case, you have Carla, who does an incredible job of minimizing standing exchanges and who is going to wrestle. Like, she's not going to get stuck in a war in the pocket. She's going to be either all the way out or all the way in. And so even if Rose can work up better than I think she can, I don't think she's going to have that many opportunities, to really let her hands go that much. And when they get down, look, I expect Rose, she might be able to scramble up a couple times early. But eventually, Rose gets tired every fight. She's going to start to slow down here. The takedowns are going to get to more dominant positions. I think Carla's an elite wrestler with an excellent top game against a bad wrestler with a pretty bad bottom game. So you want to say the striking gap's that wide as the grappling gap. The difference is the grappler controls where the fight happens, not the striker. Could Rose theoretically just manage distance and bob in and bob side to side for 25 minutes? I guess, but I really don't think so, because you look at the only time she's ever really tried to, keep that kind of frenetic movement that high was against Andrade both times, and she slowed down. She was slowing down bad in the first fight, and then the second fight, she slowed down horribly, and so I don't think she can do that. I think Carla should be a decent-sized favorite here, to be honest. I think she's going to get takedowns pretty easily, and unlike some other bets you made in the past where, like, fight IQ could maybe let you down.
I'm just going to add that, yeah. What you're going to get here. You're the best. She's the best wrestler, like, in the division. You know what you're getting there. She's going to shoot takedowns. She's going to attempt takedowns here. So if she gets knocked out, she gets knocked out. But you have a plus 170 ticket on a girl with the girls where the fight goes. So I'll
if
take
it
it.
goes 25, she's going to attempt 15 to 20 takedowns. She's an elite wrestler against a fighter with a 50% takedown D who plays guard. She's going to get many takedowns. If Rose can keep working up, I don't think she can. I think Carla's eventually going to break her and finish her personally. Yeah, I mean, this I think is the swan song for Carla. I've bet her in her last 5 fights. I'm shipping it big here, and that's probably where we part ship. But I think she's going to maul Rose. I think if Rose can't compromise her very badly very early in this fight, it's going to snowball downhill pretty quickly. So I love Carla here. I have 5 units on her. I've got money on her ITD. Yeah.
You got to ship it on the sub, John. You got to ship it on the sub, John. It's 18 to 1.
I'll probably poke the sub. My issue with the sub is just like, I mean, you saw what happened in the fight where, she does, if she gets to, and she almost got that position in the first fight.
In the first fight, really I was just gonna say, yeah, in the first fight, she almost pounded her out in the first fight.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. But yeah, basically, TLDR, if you didn't watch this entire breakdown, which I'm sure you did, elite wrestler against bad wrestler. We're going to ship it on the elite wrestler here. Moving on, though, Lags, I'll throw it to you again to start this, since I know we have another Club and Sun Max bet on tap here. We got Justin Gaethje. He's taking on Charles Oliveira. This is probably, honestly, one of the most exciting fights of the year on paper.
Probably one of the best. I think it's one of the best matchups you can have, really, in the lightweight division, and that's why I was so excited for it.
This is one of the last fun lightweight title fights we get before Islam wins the title and then puts us all to sleep for the next 5 years. Take it away.
I will say, though, the Islam Charles fight will be fun if we get that.
I hope so.
I hope so.
I hope Charles knocks his head into the bleachers, but that's.
But yeah, the reason why I was targeting this fight and so excited for it, obviously the matchup aside, but like betting wise, Charles Oliveira unders, that's where the bread's buttered, really. I mean, the guy's got elite jiu-jitsu, the guy's got power in his hands. I had 3 units on the last fight, Dustin Poirier fight doesn't start round 4, minus 152. I had 2 units on the Chandler fight, under 2.5 rounds, minus 140. And I got 5 units here on the under 2.5 rounds, minus 134. I think Oliveira is going to come out here, throw those teeps like he usually does, bring that solid pressure. To me, that Khabib fight was a huge red flag to Gaethje, not obviously with the grappling, but like the pressure that Khabib was bringing, like Gaethje was slowing down really, really bad, really early into that fight. So I think, to me, Oliveira brings that same type of pressure, not the same type of grappling, obviously, but the same type of pressure that Khabib does. So I think on the feet, both of these guys, they have the power to knock each other out. Obviously, I think a back take, Oliveira subs him pretty easily. I think if this fight hits the mat at all, it's over. And then for Gaethje, if he compromises the leg, land a big shot, like it's possible for him. Like to me, I think this fight could end inside the first round, and this looks absolutely easy. I think the violence is absolutely going to be there. It's a great fight, and that's why I think the volatility is just so massive that it's tough to be confident on a side here. So I love violence here.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm probably going to take that under. Honestly, the fight is interesting because you touched on the Khabib fight, and like Gaethje did slow, number one. But number two, something that's concerning, and I will say off the bat, Khabib and Charles' takedowns are very different. Khabib's going mostly to the lower body. Charles is mostly trying to lock you up in the clinch and trip you or throw you. But what concerned me, in addition to him slowing, was how much he was you could see how low a base he was keeping to try to avoid, the takedowns if he got there. And he kept dipping his head up the middle. And maybe he won't do that here and he's done tape or whatever and knows Oliveira's not going to go for his legs that often. But if he does, man, Oliveira throws a lot of shit up the middle. He throws knees up the middle, a lot of stuff that he can hurt him with. But I'm assuming he probably won't. I hope his team has done tape and knows that that's not what he has to do here. I would hope that Trevor Whitman has done that. But I do think the stand-up's interesting, right? Because obviously you have leg kicks of Gaethje, which are super damaging. And Charles, I think, is probably pretty leg kickable, combined with the fact that neither of them have any defense at all. Charles somehow tanking all that damage against Dustin is still very difficult for me to believe to this day.
And Chandler. I had a unit on Chandler. I had a unit Chandler KO plus 280. And I thought I was shipping both that and the under, and it was looking great.
Yeah, I still can't quite figure out what doctor Charles found in Brazil, that's got him suddenly being able to tank some serious damage here. But his durability has been better, but that said, Gaethje's a serious hitter. And unlike Chandler, who, as we touched on a couple fights ago, is really kind of one big explosive burst here and there, Gaethje will actually fire combinations off, in tandem at something he had to deal with Dustin a bit, but Dustin throws so much to the side, throws so many hooks on him. It was kind of easy for him to avoid, the extended parts of those combinations. But I think Gaethje's got a real good shot to knock him out early. With that said, I think Oliveira, first of all, can knock Gaethje out. It's kind of, I think an assumption has now been made about Gaethje because of how much shit he's gotten away with that, he can't be knocked out unless it's after 3 or 4 rounds. But after you take as much damage as Gaethje has taken through his career, it starts to go. And, this is a guy who gets hurt all the time. He gets hurt almost every fight. One of these times when he gets hurt early, he's going to get put out. And Charles does throw some heat. And so I think the stand-up's interesting. I definitely favor Gaethje by a decent amount, but I think Charles has some chances there. And in the grappling, I actually do. So I don't think him getting taken down by Khabib is a big deal. Like, it's Khabib, like, whatever. And I do think, Gaethje's got pretty strong hips and pretty good takedown defense. But man, when he got on the back there, when he got down there both times, he made almost no effort to, his hips were flat on the ground, his legs were flat on the ground. It was like easy as butter for Khabib to pass him, and that is something that I don't know. The guy wasn't doing basic stuff like looking for a whizzer against the fence when he could have stood up. He was letting Khabib pass him in the mount twice. Like, Khabib didn't have to, and again, it's Khabib, but he didn't even have to work for it. I think if Oliveira gets him flat on his back, he's going to fuck him up bad on the mat. The real question is, can he get it there, right? But I do think, even though Gaethje's strong, I have this feeling that Oliveira might be stronger in the clinch, and like getting a standing back kick to uptake or landing one of those body lock takedowns is in play. I don't know. I want to like Gaethje, I really do. I really want to like Gaethje here, but I kind of think Charles is going to take care of him, to be honest. And I don't think there's value on Charles here, but I don't think the number where it is that crazy.
Okay, I guess a couple other things I'll add to it. I guess what you were touching on there, like, oh, it's Khabib on the ground, but dude, Oliveira's fucking BJJ is slick, man. Like, I think if this hits the mat, I think it's over, personally. Like, I don't think Gaethje survives, and I guess one of my points that I was bringing to too, I think Gaethje has the lowest IQ of the guys that recently that's fought Oliveira in the grappling, like in terms of in the grappling.
Yeah.
Chandler, Poirier, and Gaethje. I think Gaethje is the most reliable, or I guess I should say the most likely to get subbed out of those two, personally. Yeah. And then on top of that, what you were just touching on with the number, and we talked about it earlier in the pod, I would much rather just play Oliveira inside the distance. Like, if this goes 5 rounds, I would not want to be holding Oliveira -1.
But I think play the under at that point, right? Though, like, because it's like,
that's why I think,
why fuck around with Oliveira inside the distance when, what if he misses that 2 takedowns and gets nuked out, right? And I get it. And I will say, you guys know, Lags, for sure, how skittish I am about unders and juicy unders, especially unders everybody are on. But I got to say, there's really, you'd have to really be pretty fucking sure that both of them have fixed every defensive hole in their games and that to think this is going over.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think the only way, we touched on it a little bit on Magic Spot. I think the only way this would somehow go over, I guess, would be if Gaethje knocks him down a couple times and just doesn't follow him to the ground. And then we have a weird, like, Oliveira stands up, and then there's a little pitter patter on the feet, some extended exchanges. But then you would think at that point, Gaethje probably puts him out, though. No,
that's actually
That's just keeps dropping him and dropping him and dropping him. And it just
I will say though, that's an interesting angle on Oliveira just in general, because if Oliveira gets dropped, he can probably chill on the ground. Because if Gaethje goes into his guard, I don't think Oliveira is going to get worried about. We saw it in each of his last 2 fights when he got dropped by Chandler and got dropped by Poirier. He was just kind of like, okay. This is gonna come on in, he can probably rest there and recover a bit, which is an interesting angle. But I agree with you. It would be weird. You would probably need to go over. I don't even think that's really that live. I think you would really need both of them to really empty their tanks in round 1 and Oliveira's leg to be pretty badly damaged, to be honest. If that happened, I suppose it could go over. But I kind of think if they swing the way Charles and Dustin were swinging, someone's going to sleep. That I think, So.
Okay, and real quick, just saw a message as well from Luke. Luke says Bulgoi is shipping it for the boys. So I guess Luke hasn't bet on Bulgoi.
Yeah, Luke's on Bulgoi. I might bet Bulgoi.
And I think he is. I think he is on. He was talking about Bulgoi sub as well at 5-1. So I'll probably be on the under for a unit, -118.
Yeah. So that'll do it, boys. Next week's either going to be, I'll tell you what, it's going to be either a funeral for my bankroll. I'm watching the fight at Gombis's apartment in Manhattan.
That'll be cool.
I told him I'm swan diving out the window if Carlo loses.
You guys both have 5 unit bets on Carlo. Yeah, but you guys doing the duo swan dive out the window.
The Tom and Baratheon. It's going to be. It will not be a fun Saturday night, Sunday morning. Plus, I have to take an Uber back from his apartment about an hour to my house after that. So that would be a really unpleasant ride. But I think Carlo's going to take care of business. I think the Thunder is going to take care of business. I think we're going to have a lot more money come Sunday morning. So I'm excited. Best of luck, everybody. As usual, guys, please drop a like and subscribe if you like the show. You can find me on Twitter at MMA Fox. You can find Lags on Twitter on Danny_Lags. And yeah, guys, good luck on your bets this weekend, even if you're against us. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.